What's better than earning money from a 9-to-5 job? It's earning money while you sleep, which is made possible if you start investing. You're listening to the Real Estate Investing Demystified with your very own dynamic duo, Ava Benesocky and August Biniaz. Tune in as we discuss everything real estate, both on the passive and active sides. We feature life-changing stories of today's real estate leaders that will help build your own roadmap to success. This is a show that will lead you to a diversified portfolio, a much bigger revenue, and a next-level venture that brings you a smooth cash flow. Let's get this episode started. Welcome back to Real Estate Investing Demystified. August and I are back in Vancouver City.
That's right.
And we're enjoying the rain, from the sun to the rain.
I don't know if I'm enjoying the rain. I was skiing.
The rain.
I was skiing the other day, and a little bit of rain came, and we all got terrified. So,
oh gosh,
I am. The idea of rain it has a different meaning around the world. Rain could mean what it means in Southwest Florida, where it just comes down for an hour. That's it.
Yeah.
Where here in Vancouver, it rains for 2 or 3 days straight. So the idea of rain is different. People say, "Oh, I love rain." Yeah, I love it too if it's for 30 minutes, not for 3 days.
Beautiful for 30 minutes, absolutely.
Or if you have 60, 80 days of rain, it doesn't feel that good. That's why a lot of Vancouverites vacation and they smoke a lot of pot. That's what I've heard. So great. No, we have a great show today. We're super excited for it.
And if there's any hockey fans listening, this show is going to be for you.
Vancouver hockey fans in particular, because our guest was a professional athlete, a professional hockey player playing for the Vancouver Canucks at some point.
Yeah. Let's get into it. Canadians love hockey. And I actually grew up in a small city, Fort Saskatchewan. And it was a total hockey city. We had a bunch of billet families, so all these junior hockey players were coming into town, and our weekends literally consisted in high school, junior high. But it consisted of we were going to the rink, we were cheering in the stands for all of our friends, and that was my life. And then I'm like, you know what? I want to be cool. I played a sport called ringette for about 6 years, and then I actually was like, you know what? I want to be cool. And there was a girls hockey team, so I actually played hockey for 2 years. It was fun, but girls hockey is obviously a little bit slower to watch, but we had a great time.
For us who don't understand ringette, describe it very quickly.
Ringette is pretty much exactly like hockey, except at the end of the stick, it's just a stick. It doesn't have that piece. So there's actually a rubber ring that has a hole in it, and you stab the ring, and that's
you play with that ring instead of a puck, basically.
Instead of a puck, exactly. So that's ringette.
Velocity of that thing moving around. So
yeah, we got to get on ice sometime, August, because I told August I could skate circles around him backwards, and he's like, I don't know about that.
Sure. So let's get into the show. We have Eddie Lack, our guest, with us today, and usually we do a long reading of the background. And Eddie has his bio here with us, but I think nothing serves it more perfectly than saying he used to be a professional athlete, a professional hockey player playing for the NHL, and now he's a developer building some incredible projects in Arizona, doing a few other things in the real estate space. So we appreciate our guest being here. So without further ado, Eddie, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Eddie.
Thank you for having me. When you guys started talking about rain and stuff, I was like, what's rain? We haven't seen that in a while here. So it's just very different where we live now. But yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, for the research of our show, I watched a bunch of other podcasts you've been on. Obviously, there's a great attention put on your hockey career. We definitely want to touch on that, but more in the sense of how you were able to leverage your background as a professional athlete, the resilience and the energy that goes into becoming a professional athlete. I think there's some stats that, the number of people that, try to get into professional sports, particularly hockey, and the ones that actually make it, the survivors, that is the minute percentage is mind blowing. So there's special human beings, but then now also to have success in business that makes you a super special person. But talk to us about early on. I've heard from friends that if you don't start hockey by the time you're 7, it's already the ship has sailed. It's too late. Talk to us about from day one. How did hockey come into your life? What's the earliest memory you have from hockey? And we'll touch on it a bit more.
Yeah, so I started playing because Sweden won the Olympics in '94, and I watched it on TV and everything. And I'm 6 years old at that time, and I told my parents, I'm like, hey, I want to try hockey. And hockey school back in the '80s when I was born, right? It didn't start until you were 7. So I'm born early 88. So they allowed me to jump up with the people and the kids that were 1 year older than me. Because I begged and I just begged my way in. And they have already gone through like the skating school and everything for like a year. And I just kind of got thrown into there. And I was like by far the worst player on my team, right? Like, because I didn't know how to skate or anything. And I started to kind of slowly catch up and everything. And then, like a couple years later, we started to introduce goalies. And from the first time that I put the pads on, I just felt that this was my way of belonging, right? And like my way of fitting in and playing like as good as everyone else. So I just really loved being the goalie. And I remember from like the first time, we were supposed to be rotating the goalies and stuff because everyone was supposed to try it. But I showed up like 2-3 hours before practice to make sure that I was the one that was going to play the goalie and get the pads and everything. So yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
So you actually started out as a goalie all the way back then, and you just stuck being a goalie throughout the lifetime of hockey.
Correct.
Amazing. Because I know, obviously some players, especially when they're younger, they try different positions. On the That's incredible. Okay, nice.
Awesome. So talk to us about NHL. How did that come about and your journey of joining the Vancouver Canucks?
So I played in Sweden in the Swedish Elite League, and like we had just finished our season there. I was 21 years old, and I got a call from my agent, and he's like, "Hey, the Vancouver Canucks wants to sign you," and I'm like, "Wow, like really? That's like amazing, right?" And I knew that there was some talk with other teams before, but to actually have like a contract in front of you, it's like wow, like, and they gave me like 3 hours to decide because otherwise they were gonna go down like the list and sign someone else, right? So I'm like, all right, like I might as well do it. I might as well leave. So yeah, I like signed. I think my first contract was like a signing bonus of like 150,000, and I just thought, oh my god, I'm gonna be able to live off of this money for the rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
Which is not really true anymore, right? But
Yeah.
no, like signed with the Canucks, and I knew that I was gonna have a few years with their AHL team before like actually got a shot with the big club, right? Because they had Luongo and Corey Schneider and I knew that I wasn't better than those guys, right? So went over and just played. Our first year was in Manitoba, in Winnipeg. Bought a Canada Goose as my first purchase with that signing bonus because I need to survive the cold up there, right? Then they got their NHL team back, and I played 2 more years in Chicago in the minor league team, before I got the chance to play with the Canucks. So yeah.
Nice, great, incredible story. Going back to when you first started playing hockey at 6 years old, and the group you were playing with were older than you, do you feel that having to compete with people who were better than you, it crafted you to always do better than the competition and try your best? Does that something that kind of relate to your life throughout your journey?
100%. I talked to my friend Randy about this last week too. We always talk about the underdog mentality, right? And like even throughout my youth and my juniors and everything, I was never the guy on the team, right? Like I was always top 5 on my teams, but I was never the guy that everyone was talking about to make the NHL or make the next level and everything. And that just made me work harder, I think, right? And that kind of has like translated well for me in the real estate game and stuff too. So yeah,
nice,
absolutely.
Nice. Let me tell you guys kind of an interesting story here. So there is a lot of research done, and it's matter of fact that children who are later in their age in their classes in their school, these are elementary school kids, if they're later in the year and they're older relative to their classmates, because when you're young, when you're a toddler or when you're in elementary school, a few months age gap is huge. You grow faster and what have you. So, but the research shows that kids who are older in their classes do much better in life than the ones that are younger. In my family, both maternal and paternal, the idea was, hey, push your kids, get them in school earlier, maybe even a year early, so they can compete against people who are better than them, that they do better.
And
But
they
in
try harder.
but in academia, in sports, that might be the case. They always do, and you can see this with, for example, a lot of Eastern Bloc countries where they push their kids so much, and they do tremendously well in sports. But in academia, being a bit older and doing better than your classmates by virtue of being older, it serves you better. So it's a interesting dichotomy in this for this topic. But yeah, we continue the conversation. Another topic that comes up a lot, and sorry, Eva, I'm kind of excited for our guest here today, but a lot of time, professional athletes, they lack financial literacy.
That's actually what I was going to bring up.
Yeah. So, and a lot of time, professional athletes, for example, in the US, when you talk about football, baseball, and other sports, boxing, for example, a lot of times they come from the working class, difficult upbringings, and what have you, and they lack the financial literacy, and a lot of times their money goes, quote unquote, gets wasted and what have you. They don't have the financial literacy to be able to achieve great things. Now, you do see some athletes doing really well. I mean, you got the Michael Jordans. I mean, he could be wrong every business decision he makes, but with the money he made from Nike, that will carry him. But a lot of athletes have done tremendously well in business, the decisions they've made, but a lot of other athletes don't do well because they lack the financial literacy. Talking about your transition into real estate, which we'll get into in detail, talk to us about your background growing up or even as an adult. What was it about, if it be it real estate, business, financial literacy, that helped you to transition into business? If there wasn't and you had to learn on the job, tell us that as well.
Yeah, no, it's like my family has always been in real estate back home in Sweden. So I kind of hung around them early and everything to kind of learn from them, but like even when I first started playing in the NHL and you get this bag of cash, right? And you're like, what am I going to do with this? I made some questionable decisions early, I think, that kind of woke me up a little bit, right? Like when I first started getting like that kind of money, and I think this is how most people that are athletes think. They're like, oh well, like I'm just a hockey player, so like I'm gonna focus on playing hockey, and I'm gonna leave the investing and the finances to someone else that know what they're doing. And me doing that in the beginning by not educating myself kind of burned me, and that just like woke me up to whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to have the knowledge myself to know if this is like a good or a bad investment, right? I like can't just blindly trust people to make these decisions for me, because this is my money. So I need to know where this is going, and I need to know like what this investment is before I commit. So like me making mistakes early kind of opened my eyes more to do more research and like read, and like there's so many avenues out there, like with YouTube and books and shows and podcasts and everything, right? To learn. Those first couple experiences just like taught me that I have to like at least know what these people that I'm trusting to manage my money are doing. Yeah.
And keep in mind, it's very important that you are taught to be a specialist, especially in sports, right? Hey, play your position, keep focus. So that translates to life. You're like, hey, listen, I'm a specialist in what I do. Somebody else needs to figure out my finances, which is not the case. All of us from a young age should learn about personal finances and financial literacy.
Yeah, but my question is when you joined the NHL, did they introduce you to somebody like a financial advisor, or did they have an option of investments that you guys can look at, knowing that you're getting a signing bonus, and then as you grow your career, you're going to be getting paid millions of dollars, really? So it's like, hey, here you go. Here's kind of the blueprint. Do they provide that to you guys in the NHL?
They don't provide like a guy or a company that you should go to or anything. It's more like you talk around the locker room and you kind of see what other guys are doing, and they're talking about what they're doing, and then introducing me to their guys and everything. But like there's so many options and different vehicles to invest your money in, right? That
Right.
and like they come from teammates, or they come from like your hockey agent introduce you to people and everything too. But it's kind of like, as soon as you start to make money, there's like 25 guys that are like, hey, you should do this with me or this with me. And
Oh, okay. Yeah.
like I was still just like 25 years old when I went up to the NHL, and it's kind of like overwhelming
I bet.
to like know what you're gonna do, right?
Of
I
course.
bet. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to change the topic a little bit here. I'm very curious because we're also from Canada and we do business
Yeah.
across the borders and we down in the south. But when you decided to do business, Eddie, what was it that made you look down south? Like why not do real estate in Canada where everybody knows you and you have a strong relationship with people? Talk to us about that. What did you see across the border?
Well, one, my wife's American,
Oh, okay.
for me to have like a work visa and everything, like we had to be south of the border, right? And when we first retired, like I didn't really look at where do I think I can make the most money. For me, it was like, where do I think that our quality of life will be the best, and the money part will figure itself out eventually, right?
Mhm.
So we looked at here, we looked at California, but there's so much traffic and taxes and everything, right? And then we looked at Florida too, which I know that you guys are in as well, right? And I just don't really like the hurricane seasons and everything like that. So we settled on Arizona because the weather is great 9 months out of the year, and the taxes are low, and we still felt like it was kind of like on the way up. And I knew like one person when we moved here, and kind of started fresh, and yeah, we've been here like 7 years now.
Wow.
Mhm.
And you focused on when you were down there, you focused, obviously you wanted to be in real estate, but you also focused on brokerage. Now you're doing development, ground up development, you're building some incredible projects and you have investors. We'll get into that. But talk
Yeah.
to us about now this first of all is your third, I think is your third move, because you're from Sweden, Canada, now the US, married an American, but now you're starting from zero again. And now you're in a totally new industry, which you don't have experience. You're not a specialist like you've been taught since you were 6 years old to be a specialist. It's a bit nerve-wracking, no? It's a little bit of anxiety there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's you go from, like I said before, it's like when you're a hockey player, you're top of the world, right? And everyone comes to you. You don't have to reach out to anyone, right? And then it like completely flips, because now I'm selling a product and I'm reaching out to people. So like the mental mindset was like tough for me in the beginning, because I was like, I went from just when you're out and meeting people and everything, you go from introducing yourself to from a hockey player, and like everyone just like instantly respect you, to, oh, I'm a real estate agent, and they're like, what? Like, right? Um
And you have to sell yourself, right? You gotta,
yeah,
like, sell who
exactly.
you
But I
are.
Like,
think I think what
yeah,
Eddie's talking about is more pride. You're
yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
yeah,
NHL player
yeah,
yeah,
in private jets, flying around the world. People kiss the feet the ground you walk on,
yeah,
and next thing you know, you're offering a service,
yeah,
and now you got to compete with others. It's a pride situation as well,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Obviously, there's a
absolutely.
lot of money to be made,
yeah,
and brokerage is a great foundation to have when you want to get involved in real estate. I always advise it to anybody, get into brokerage, but
Yeah,
it's the pride
yeah,
of hey, is this the right move I'm taking?
yeah.
So I think
and in
that's
such a competitive space to be in.
I think he enjoyed the competition. I guess
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
speaking on his behalf, but it's
yeah.
more of a pride.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
Uh,
for sure. And it's like it took a while for me to get over that hump, but like once I realized that like I'm actually helping people too in
yeah,
this space, right? And I have a track record to show that I have helped people. That's when kind of the mindset shifted for me, but it was definitely hard in the beginning. I'm not gonna lie.
What year is it that you transitioned from being in the NHL to your real estate career?
So I've been doing this for about 6 years now.
Okay, nice.
So we bought our first house here 7 years ago, and then I like officially retired a year after. Yeah,
Okay,
And
right on.
how old are you, out of curiosity?
37.
37, young man.
Right
All
on.
right.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the business model.
Yes,
That
absolutely.
Eddie.
But a transition as well, brokerage to development.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. I used to be a developer. I used to build
Yes.
homes for a decade here in Vancouver.
Beautiful, beautiful luxury homes.
Yeah, no, I built some really nice
Yeah.
homes. Not to toot my own
They've
horn,
broken
but
records
for
for
the sale price. Yeah, but and that's where we met. That's how I got this beautiful girl to be my wife. I just had built a beautiful house, and she came over on our first few dates, and I'm like, yeah, this is where I live. She's like, wow. And I was planning to sell that house, but I was using it to say this is where I live. She's like, you live in this house all by yourself? That's how I got to.
He said, "Well, welcome home, baby." And we actually lived there for how long?
4 or 5 years.
Over
Yeah.
5 years.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
And but talk to us about, believed in real estate, got involved in the brokerage, got over the hump of the pride that it takes to now you're offering a different type of service than your sports and athletic acumen. Now you're offering a real estate service in a very competitive market. But talk to us about the transition, about development. What did you see there? Your nose for money and business probably noticed something. What did you see to get involved in development?
Yeah. So I tried a little bit of everything. Like, I was part owner of a brokerage, and I was in charge of like 100 agents like a few years ago and stuff. And I just like I hated my life, right? Because there's like calls every night with like the same questions and everything. And I'm like, there must be like a better way to do this, right? And at the same time, I started doing like some smaller flips myself, and then it turned more into new builds. Because like I've always said, like I want to learn on my dime. I don't want want anyone else to pay for my mistakes, right? And with the money that I had from hockey and everything, I like obviously had like a little bit of like a cushion to work with too. So I started flipping and building spec homes and everything with my own money, and just really like the daily grind of it, and like the type of issues that come up. It's never the same issues over and over again. It kind of like changes, which keeps me on my toes, I feel like. And with the investors and stuff that I started to get from Canada, it wasn't that many that wanted to like buy a house here and just have it for when they're down. It like more turned into, we want to move money from Canada down to the US. The way that the US dollar is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger, right? So that's when I turned from me from like just being an agent to a developer. So like I did about like 5, 6 homes myself, and then I'm like, okay, I'm like starting to get the hang of this. Like now I can start taking on investors' money, and that's what I've been doing for like the last 3.5, 4 years now.
Nice.
Sure. No, it's a dynamic, fluid business. There's a lot of moving parts rather than just getting on phones, cold calling, or dealing as a broker. Being a builder or developer is a lot more dynamic, and I'm sure it suits you because I enjoyed it as well. I used to be a real estate agent at some point as well, which I didn't really do well in, but I did much better as a general contractor, as a developer. But when you were looking around, you just come to this new country, I'm sure you got your license down there trying to do brokerage. You're very competitive naturally because you're an athlete. Were you looking around and seeing clients or your peers or other brokers who were selling homes for people and seeing the margins they were making? Was that another reason you even looked at fix and flipping or developing ground up development?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, when I started with the brokerage that I'm with right now, my two bosses are two German guys, and they started like about 2 years before me. So they've always been like 2 years ahead of me. So that comes back to like the underdog mentality and everything, right? But I've always tried to catch up to them, right? And they kind of showed me the ropes when it came to like the development side and everything. And then like I just went through like the trial and errors in like finding the right builder for the right project, finding the architect, finding the designer and the pool guy and the landscaper and everything, right? So, um,
Building your team, like
yeah, exactly.
you're building your
Yeah,
team and
exactly.
bringing your players.
So once I got my team together, that's like when I felt comfortable moving to like the next step. But like it was definitely some trial and error in the beginning because you always think that you can save money there by using this guy because he says that he can do it for this much and everything. It's just like you learn that like eventually it like the money is like always around the same for these guys, right? And if someone says that it can do it for 20% lower, like that's in my experience never gonna be true in the long run.
Yeah, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
That's the old
Yeah.
old adage,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's very true in the construction space. People always try to underbid, but then the amount of brain damage that you get as a developer hiring somebody who is 20% cheaper is not worth it many
No.
times. And sometimes the material they use and the mess they make at the job
And you have to
site.
babysit them, and
And
yeah.
so you have to have your site super, who
Yeah.
that's another layer of cost that oversees these contractors who come. I also want to talk a bit. You've mentioned a few times about your investors in Vancouver. You have this connection with Vancouver. Obviously,
Yeah.
you were playing sports, but it seems like we know that a lot of people, particularly in Vancouver, because Vancouver is the West Coast, there's a connection between Vancouver and Phoenix. A lot of people have second homes down there. They vacation down there. It's a 2.5, 3 hour flight, I believe. So they can get there quick, cheap flights, cheap real estate. Some investment firms have done tremendously well. They're somewhat in trouble, some of them currently, because they just got over their skis and they were too aggressive. But overall, there's a connection between Vancouver and Phoenix and Arizona about investing. But it seems that you also talk about investors that you have in Vancouver. But I want to talk about more about the psychology of being able to deal with an investor. That's another, in a way, it's not really a service you're offering. It's not really a product. It's more of a relationship that you're offering. Um, I'm wondering about you leveraging your brand, your career, you as an athlete. With Ava and I, when we started CPI 5 years ago, we didn't have much of a personal brand to leverage. I was a builder for 10 years. Ava was a real estate agent for a long time, but we didn't have a big brand to leverage to be able to go to investors and say, "Hey, look at my track record. This is who I am, or this is the exciting person I am, or I used to work for government, or I used to work for this big, large private equity firm, or I used to be an athlete." We didn't have any of that, so we put a lot of time and attention and focus on building a brand around ourselves. Getting featured in Forbes, Yahoo Finance, speaking on stage, going on podcasts, starting our own podcast. So there was so much work and effort that went into building a brand around ourselves. And if you Google us, a lot of information comes up. Was the journey for you to deal with investors that now you're offering a partnership to them, you're offering a relationship to them instead of a service or a product? Was the road a bit easier because of the background you had and the somewhat of a celebrity status you had, or did you have to work your butt off to get investors to partner with you?
Yeah, no, and I always say that hockey kind of opened up the door for me, and then it was up to me to do something with that opportunity, right? I started the same as you guys, though. I mean, like really focus on like the social media part of it. Like I've always been big on Twitter, but I also feel like Twitter does not really give me any leads or clients or anything. So like my biggest thing was just to kind of build like my Instagram up and like the Google profile and everything, right? To get everyone from there. But like the biggest thing for me has just been like the word to mouth. I mean, it's and that's where I think the hockey helps too, because when I have a client that's in Vancouver and he talks to a friend of his, and he's like, "Hey, like, I have an agent developer in Phoenix to refer you," and he's like, "Well, who is that?" Right? And then it's like, "Oh yeah, but it's Eddie Lack. You saw him play for the Canucks before, right?" Like that's where it kind of helps for me, I think, to like get my foot in the door, and then it's kind of like up to me to like do something with it, you know?
And keep in mind, people who are investing, they want to have experience sometimes, right? There's a stock
Correct.
market where you
Correct.
invest and it's up and down and you're kind of whatever, you're just watching it. But then there's an actual journey that Eddie probably takes them on, and an experience and the connection, and it's fun for investors,
Good
the
on.
high net worth investors,
Yeah.
right? They're like, hey, I've invested with Eddie Lack,
Yeah.
you know, and we feel that same thing at CPI Capital,
sure,
right? Like
for sure.
investors really enjoy the journey of their investment as well.
Hey, I'm gonna
Make it a little fun.
I'm gonna invest a couple $100,000 with Eddie Lack and make great return, but I'm gonna go down to Phoenix and play some golf with him too.
And play some golf with them and go for dinner. Exactly. No
So
worries.
last point on the projects that you're doing in Arizona, is it what's your target market? Is it Phoenix, Scottsdale? What are you building? Where are you building?
Scottsdale and Paradise Valley mainly. Yeah. So my target has kind of gone. So for those that don't know, Paradise Valley is kind of like the Beverly Hills of Arizona, and like it has just like exploded in the last 5 years with new builds and everything. So you buy an acre to build on. 5 years ago, you could have bought an acre for $1 million. Now it costs you about $3.5 million for just the dirt, right?
Wow.
So these are like $10 to $20 million exits. So I'm more focused on one area, just east of that on the Scottsdale side. So where you still get an acre. You buy the acre for about 1.4 million instead of the 3.5, and we build like a slightly smaller house on it, but your exit is 5 million instead of like 10, 15, 20, right? So we kind of nailed the build and the landing and everything down. So like it comes out to about like 900K USD in for the entire project to make like about $1 million in 18 months. So that's kind of the area that I feel like we've really like focused and specialized on, and that's where I get like most of my off-market deals and everything, because like now these sellers call me directly instead of going through like another agent or anything, right? So that's the area that I like. We have about 7 builds going there right now, and like the houses are like about 6,500 square feet, so they're bigger builds.
Got it.
Nice.
Yeah. So you're focusing on that luxury spec home market. Is that $5 million price range that serves a larger number of buyers than the $20 million, for example? There's more profit, I'm guessing, in the 20 million, but the 5 million serves a larger market, so it's easier to sell. It doesn't sit around for your mortgage to you get debt on these deals, right? Or is all equity? You
Correct.
get debt. You get debt, construction loan type. Great. And then as far as kind of structuring the deal, do you usually have one investor that funds the equity, or do you have multiple investors that fund it?
It all depends. Like there's of the ones we have right now, there's 4 with one investor. There's a couple with like 3 guys that went in together. There's another one with just like a couple guys. So we kind of structure it differently per deal. Like sometimes I throw some money in myself to go in with them and stuff as well, right? So there's like a lot of different ways to do it. My next step that I'm kind of trying to dip my feet in a little bit, it's like the fund way, right? To start like a fund where people can like invest anything from like $1,000 to like $1 million, right? And because that reaches like a bigger population, I feel like too. So yeah.
Sure. Just going back on the returns that are available, the numbers that you said. So let's say 18 months to 24 months, let's say 2 years approximately in the worst case scenario. One investor or multiple investors put some money in, approximately $1 million. They double their money in 24 months in the max way. You said 18, but let's just hypothetically say 24. Is that project level? Meaning that, is that a total profit the deal makes? Is that before you take your piece as a general? I'm assuming this is a GPLP structure, right? Is that project level profit or that's just to the LPs?
No, it's not. The way that I've structured it before is my investor owns the land, and the construction loan is like all in their names and everything. I just take a development fee, and that's included in the build costs and everything too. So like the million that they make, like the only thing that they obviously get a payoff of that is the taxes, but there's no other fees or anything to it.
So you're more of a kind of a manager, but
Correct.
you're somewhat of a service provider. You're getting your fees for the services you provide. You don't touch any of the upside that the investor makes. For example, in our space, maybe say no because you're nodding for people who can't watch you on video. So Eddie said no. But in our space, the way that we structure our deals, so we charge fees, acquisition fees, asset management fees, but then we also participate in the upside. So we're kind of we make it as performance based. So we have vested interest for the deal to do better because we're getting a piece of usually 30% of the upside. So it kind of motivates us to make sure the deal does well.
Yeah, after the investment.
But in your case, obviously you want the deal to do well because you want these investors to keep investing with you. If they're not getting their promised return. Great. No, awesome. This was great information, and we'll have your information in the show notes if people like to reach out. We love to come down to Scottsdale and see you as well. But let's get to any other questions, Ava, before we get to the second segment of our show?
Let's get to the second segment.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. 10 championship rounds to financial freedom. We're going to ask you a series of questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it. First question, Eddie. Who's been the most influential person in your life?
My dad. Yeah. He really just helped me with hockey and everything, and then just showed me how to be a man, I guess. So yeah, my dad has definitely been the most influential.
Love it. Next question. What's the number one book you'd recommend?
God, number one. I mean, we talked about it before. The Rich Dad Poor Dad book is such a great book that kind of goes through generations, right? And it still works. And that would probably be my number one book. I am reading one right now that's called Range, and it kind of talks about kids that specialize in a sport or something early compared to kids that more try everything when they're young, right? So that's a really interesting book that I'm reading right now too. So
which one do better?
Yeah, what's the thesis?
The specializing one seemed to do better, but from my personal experience, I don't agree. But that's what the stats says. So,
Interesting.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. We should read that because we have two sons. So
yeah,
amazing. Okay, next question. If you had the opportunity to travel back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would travel back in time and just invest more of my money in real estate while I was still playing. Because I kind of tried the stock market and the life insurance route and everything too. And I just feel the real estate is something that I know myself, right? And so that's what I would invest in more earlier in my life.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, good advice. Next question. What's the best investment you've ever made?
My best investment that I ever made, that's probably one of the last spec builds that we just did because that was in Paradise Valley, but it was like a really, really good return. Yeah.
Amazing.
Lucky investors.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, what's the worst investment you've ever made and what lessons did you learn from it?
It was probably one of my first builds because it was the wrong GC. It was the wrong everything, right? I mean, the whole project cost probably twice as much as I thought it would, and it took twice as long time as it should have, right? So yeah.
Okay. Next question is, how much would you need in the bank to retire today? What's your number?
I mean, I'm very bushy, right? Like, but if I have 20 M's throughout investments, then I would retire today.
It's a
Okay.
nice number.
Nice number. Awesome. Sometimes people say numbers on the show and I'm like, how could you live off of that?
Yeah.
It's very achievable. I'm like, you haven't made that yet? But yeah, no, but we've had other big numbers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next
You like
question.
to travel and everything too, right? And
Yeah.
I'm just like, I mean, it's not like I'm gonna retire and just like sit and like stare at a TV for the rest of my life. Like,
Exactly.
I still want to go places and experience things and have houses and everything around the world, right? So yeah.
Of course.
I love it. Awesome. Okay, next question is, if you could have dinner with someone dead or alive, who would it be?
Right now, and this is supposed to be the rapid fire, right? But like right now, I would just really like to have dinner with Donald Trump and like see what the hell is going on in his mind and like everything that's going on with the tariffs and like
Yeah.
where the country is going and everything. Like there's so many questions that I would have, right? So that's definitely him that I would pick. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice one. Nice.
Watch out. Is Arizona blue or red?
We were red for this past election, but we have a blue governor, so we're kind of like split. But yeah,
Oh, okay.
It's all those California people moving there. That's what
exactly.
Exactly. All right, Eddie, if you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing now?
I would have probably stuck within hockey with something, so like a coach or like a scout or a GM or something. But I'd probably stick within hockey because I still love the game. Yeah,
Amazing. Okay, my favorite question, book smarts or street smarts?
street smart.
Street smarts all the way. Okay, awesome.
But you need both.
Yeah, you do need both. Absolutely. Okay, last question, Eddie. If you had $1 million in cash and you had to make one investment today, what would it be?
I mean, that's like what I would do because we talked about the million in, right? That's like what I would do with our spec homes and stuff now. So I would throw it in there, and then in 18 months, you have two to do something fun with. So
Amazing. I
Nice.
love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your background and your story and what you're doing. We're excited to watch you grow and
Yeah,
come and see you
absolutely.
in person.
Absolutely. And just let everybody who's listening right now, Eddie, what's the best way that people can reach you? They want to
yeah,
reach
so email eddie@eddielack.com. My Instagram is at eddielack31, I believe, and then Twitter at eddielack. So yeah, just reach out.
Thank you so much. It's been a
Fantastic.
fantastic show.
Thanks for being here today, Eddie.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope this conversation enlightened you on how to win big in this highly profitable and risk-averse space. Get on your feet and embrace this world that offers so many opportunities just waiting for you out there. Continue your journey to becoming a savvy real estate expert by subscribing to the show at cpicapital.ca. Don't forget to leave a positive rating and share with your friends. See you on the next one.